level security settings. My name is Robert Andrews. I'm an executive security consultant and team lead for the IBM I Security and Authentication Lab Services team based out of Rochester, Minnesota. If you have any questions that are not answered in today's presentation or would like to discuss the security of your IBM I system, feel free to reach out to me using the phone number or the email address that you see on the bottom of my slide. This presentation will only cover those things that are set at a system level and are not covered in other presentations in this bootcamp. This presentation is not inclusive of all the items required to secure an IBM I system. There are many other items that must be looked at the communication layer, at the user profile layer, and at the object level. All of these items must be taken into consideration in order to properly secure your IBM I system. In today's session, we will be covering some policy recommendations and security benchmarks, PTFs and patches, system values, and system service tools security. Overall, the IBM I security policy should match the corporate IT security policy. To do this, create an IT security policy that is technology agnostic. That means it sets overall goals and standards for security, but is not dependent on any one particular platform. Once the overall policy is designed, then platform-dependent implementation plans can be created to show how to take the specific policy items and turn them into the settings for those particular operating systems and hardware. IBM does provide shipped values for each system value that we're going to be talking about today. However, these shipping values may not be the recommended values for these items as things change over time. When upgrading a system, the values are not reset. Any prior values that were set remain active after the upgrade. Besides having your own technology security plan, many companies rely on third parties for their security benchmarks, such as CIS. Many companies choose to trust third-party security benchmarks as they provide a good standard for security on their systems. One such company is CIS. They make popular benchmarks for many different OSs and devices. For many years, the IBM I was not included in the CIS benchmarks. However, as of 2020, the IBM I now is listed on the CIS website and has benchmarks available for IBM I 7.2, 7.3, and 7.4. These benchmarks provide security standards and settings that give you a benchmark way of approaching the system to design a security plan. Each of these benchmarks includes two different levels of security. Level 1 is considered the general corporate or enterprise environment. This is the settings that are most useful for the most clients. However, there is also a Level 2, which is designed for high security or sensitive data environments. Note that by turning on some of the items at Level 2, you will limit the system functionality in order to achieve that higher level of security. If you would like to access the CIS benchmarks, you can do so at the web address on your screen. As with all IT systems, it's important to keep the patches and security items up to date. On IBM I, these are PTFs. We recommend that these PTFs are applied once every 3 months. PTFs correct problems on the system as well as add new functionality. IBM makes this easier by grouping PTFs together into items known as PTF groups. These PTF groups are focused around particular areas. IBM recommends that you download the following groups: the current cumulative group, the hyper, which is the high impact and pervasive issues, the security group, the DB2 group for database updates, and the technology refresh to make sure that your system runs with all the latest and greatest hardware. In addition to these patches for the core OS, don't forget about PTFs for other IBM options installed, such as WebSphere and DB2 Mirror. Besides IBM software, you might have many other software products running on your systems from third parties, vendors, business partners, or even open source software. Don't forget to install the latest patches and fixes for each of those items as well. You can easily check to see if your system has the current level of patches by using SQL. This does require that your IBMI is able to see the internet from the network that it's attached to. This is an outbound connection to IBM.com. In order to access this from an SQL interface, you can run this SQL select statement you see on the screen here. The links on the screen will provide more details for how to interpret these results, as well as a page to directly see the levels yourselves. As you can see in this sample screenshot here, it will show you for each of the PTF groups for your level of the system, if they are currently installed, if they'll be current at the next IPL, or if you're back level and there is an update available. The bulk of this presentation will be talking about many of the system values that are available on the IBMI system. System values provide overall environmental settings to your IBMI. At version 7.4, there's currently 150 active system values. In addition to this, there are 7 system values that are obsolete from prior releases of the system and no longer have influence over the system. System values cover everything from the time and date to the security and password policy on your system. To access these system values, you can use the Work with System Values command. Note that in order to access, to view, or to change many of these system values, you must have All Object, SecAdmin, and Star Audit Special Authority. Of those 150 system values on your system, 48 of them are designated as security related. You'll see those 48 listed on the next screen. These 48 system values that are related to security have a special software lock provided inside of System Service Tools. IBM recommends that you use this lock to prevent unintended changes to these particular security-related system values. In order to access this lock, log on with Start SST, provide your SST user ID and password, select Work with System Security, and on the top you will see Allow System Value Security Changes. If the Allow is set to Yes, this means that it is unlocked and changes are allowed. If the Allow System Value Security Changes is set to No, then changes are blocked. If you do need to make a change, you would need to first come into SST, unlock the system value, make the change, and then most important, do not forget to relock once you are done making the change. For details on this lock function, follow the link on your screen. As previously mentioned, this slide shows all of the 48 security-related system values for IBMI. In addition, we have provided the recommended value that you should see for each of these system values. We're not going to take the time to go through each one of these, but if you'd like to make a screenshot or reference the slide, please pause this presentation now, and then we will continue. One of the main system values that you need to take a look at is the Q-Security system value. This sets the overall system security level. This is a value that goes in increments of 10, starting at 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50. 50 is currently the highest value that is allowed. In addition, you can no longer set your system to security level 10. This has been blocked since IBMI version 4.3. However, if you have been upgrading your system over the years and were at security level 10, again, that level will remain. IBM recommends that you're at security level 40 or higher, which means 40 or 50. New systems ship with a default level of 40 for Q security. Note that it takes an IPL to activate a new setting when making a change to the Q security system value. And in order to change Q security, you must have All Object and SecAdmin special authorities. There are some recommendations to do before changing to particular levels. Most of these come when going from a lower level to security level 40 or 50. If your system is at security level 10, 20, or 30, and you're going up to 40 or 50, make sure you follow the link at the bottom of the screen in order to turn on some audit information, to check to see if your system would have any problems. The concept here is that while your system is at a lower security level, you turn on a particular type of auditing and then let the system run. We recommend that you do this for, say, 90 days. After 90 days, check the logs to see if there were any issues that would have been logged on the system. If there were, then these are things that would have failed if you were running at security level 40. You can use this list of issues to first make changes to your system before changing your system to security level 40 to ensure that you do not encounter those same problems after your system value change. Here are some of the highlights for each of the various levels for Q security. As a reminder, you can no longer set your system to Q security level of 10. At level 10, user profiles are not even required. If you sign in with a profile that doesn't exist, the system would automatically have created it for you. At security level 20, we now get the ability and the requirement to have a pre-existing user ID and password to be set. However, all profiles are given all object special authority. This means that there's no object level security, as all users have access to all objects on the system. Security level 30 is where we see a large majority of our IBMI user base. At security level 30, you must use a profile with a password to sign in, and profiles are not given all object special authority. This requires that object authority is specifically set on your objects. So at security level 30, we have the ability to sign in, and we have object level security. Security level 40 is the lowest level that IBM recommends. At this level, we add in some integrity checking to the system. This prevents non-supported interfaces from accessing the objects and fails other violations which would have only been logged if you were at a lower level of 30. The highest level is security level 50. Security level 50 provides enhanced integrity protection, meeting the Common Criteria or CC compliance level. This prevents all internal control block manipulations required for high-level system security for extremely sensitive systems. One of the other major items that is set through system values is the password policy. The IBMI has supported modern password styles since v5.r1, which came out in 2001. These modern password styles include up to 128 character long, case-sensitive passphrases using all of the various characters and special characters on a standard keyboard. However, many customers still use the legacy style passwords on the IBMI, which are limited to 10 characters, are technically all uppercase, just the digits, and only 4 of the special characters. In addition to the modern password style, the IBMI also has modern password rules available since IBMI 6.1, released in 2008. To do this, there is a system value called Q password rules. Within the Q password rule system value, you can set multiple rules that cover all of the requirements of your passwords. Besides the Q password rules, there are also older style individual system values that provide some of the functionality. By using the Q password rules system value, you're actually able to create a more complex and modern password policy than you can using the individual system values. Now, it's important here to note that you cannot mix and match the Q password rules and the other individual system values. If you use any Q password rule setting other than pwd sysval, then a set of the individual password rules are ignored. So it's important to keep in mind, either use Q password rules and put all of your rules under there, or use the individual items. If you look on the screen at the bottom, second to the bottom bullet, you can see a list of the individual password rules that will be ignored when the Q password rule system value is set. However, there are some other items that relate to passwords, not specifically the password rules, which still must be set. You can see a list of those items on the bottom bullet of your screen. IBM recommends the following setup for your system values with regards to your password policy. First, you should be running at password level 3. This will allow you to use the longer passphrases up to 128 characters, case sensitive, and all of the special characters on your keyboard. For QPassword rules, we recommend 4 settings inside of there. All create change, limit profile name, minimum length 16, and require any 3. We'll go through each one of these individually here. For the all create change, it ensures that all of the password rules apply to all of the create and change password items. In the past, system administrators could use change user profile to manually set a password that did not match the system policy. By using all create change, it ensures that all interfaces, including those from administrative interfaces, follow the password policies when allowing passwords to be set or assigned. The limit profile name will make sure that the profile is not part of the password. Minimum length 16 sets the minimum length for the password to 16 characters. This implicitly also implies a maximum length of 128. By us not setting a maximum length, it defaults to the highest possible item. The require any 3 then says that of the 4 different character types, being uppercase character, lowercase character, numeric digit, and special characters, that 3 of the 4 must be used. However, it's up to each user to choose which of the 3 out of those 4 different types that they have to use at a minimum. Of course, they are allowed to use all 4 different types if they choose. Besides password rules, the other individual system values that need to be set regard around repeating prior passwords. By setting this value to 1, it makes sure that the system will not allow any of the 32 previous passwords to be used. Once a password rolls off that 32 list, it is then allowed to be able to be reused. The password validation program. This is set to RegFact, meaning the registration facility. This provides a way to register a password validation program. A password validation program is one that can make sure that the password to be changed to meets additional requirements. One common use for this is to scan a dictionary of common passwords. This password validation program can then prevent the user from choosing a password which might otherwise be considered easy to guess. Password change block set to 24. This sets the number of hours that have to elapse between password changes. By setting this to 24, it means that a user can only change their password once every 24 hours. Well, you might wonder, why do we have this? Well, this goes to the 2 above it to require different passwords. In the past, when require different passwords has been set to a lower value, say the previous 8 passwords, we've seen users sit there and change their passwords 9 times in a row just so that they can go back to a password that they were previously using. By using this password change block, the idea here is that it would slow down those invalid multiple rapid password changes, requiring a day waiting period between each change. This way, we hope that the previous 32 password matches is something that will be held and not something that the user works around to go back to a common password. We also recommend an expiration interval of 90 days. This requires that the password be changed every 90 days. And an expiration warning of 7, which means when the password is going to expire in 7 days, the user will start getting warnings when they sign on to their interactive session. Note that the bottom 3 items on your screen, each marked with an asterisk, are only the defaults. In each user profile, they can either point to the system value or they can be overridden. This can be useful if you have service accounts or machine-to-machine accounts that do not need to follow these particular rules. For example, you might make a machine account only change their password once a year versus a human which has to change it every 90 days. So while these system values provide the default, they'll only be used if the user profile has the matching parameter set to *sysval. We recommend that you do not use default passwords on the IBM I. A default password is a password that matches the user profile. These most often come from the create user profile command. The shipped system default for the password parameter is *user profile, meaning if I created a profile called jsmith, the default password will also be jsmith. Our recommendation is that you change the command default for the create user profile password parameter to *none. This way, when someone creates a user profile, if they don't set a password, none will be assigned to that account and it will not be usable. When you are creating new user accounts, it's recommended to use a randomly generated password for each individual account, which is then given to that particular user. Accounts should still be set to password expired so that when the user signs in for the first time with that randomly generated password, they'll be prompted to change the password to their own personal password. As mentioned on the bottom of the screen, take advantage of the password validation exit point in order to be able to prevent dictionary or well-known passwords from being used. Tools to do this can either be self-written or are available for purchase from IBM, as well as many of the IBM I security business partners. Besides using passwords alone, consider other protections for your IBM I system. Some of these include multi-factor authentication, as well as Kerberos to link your IBM I user accounts to Active Directory. Many cybersecurity insurance policies now require these additional modern authentication methods to be in place in order to be granted a policy. There are tools available from both IBM and security business partners to help set up multi-factor authentication or Kerberos on your IBM I. Remember, the administrative accounts on your systems are some of the most powerful accounts and often some of the weakest secured accounts. This is because for many years, administrators were able to use the change user profile command to set their own weak passwords, which do not meet system requirements. By using the *all create change option in the Q password rule system value, you can prevent this by enforcing the password policy everywhere for all accounts on the system. The next section that we're going to talk about is the System Service Tools functionality. System Service Tools, or SST, has its own user profile and password. It's recommended to have as few SST user profiles as possible. These should be limited to the true owners and administrators of the system. Furthermore, each SST user can have its functions limited so that they only have access to the tools that they need specifically inside of SST. This is done through the User Privileges menu. SST can be extremely dangerous as it provides very low-level access to the system. Do not use system service tools without guidance from IBM. SST also has its own security policies that are set within System Service Tools. It's recommended that you match your OS policy for IBM I within SST. However, SST does not use the system values like the operating system does. Instead, use Start SST, log in with your SST user ID and password, select Work with Service Tools, Server, Security, and Devices. Look for the current password level. Make sure that the current password level is set to 2. If it is not set to password level 2, then you cannot use password rules inside SST. In addition, it will be using the lower DES encryption. If you're currently on level 1, go ahead and change to password level 2 inside of SST. Again, this only affects the SST passwords and SST password policies. By setting password level 2, you will now use SHA encryption and have the ability to set password rules. To set the SST password policy, you need to go into SST when it's already at level 2. Log in to SST with an existing user ID and password. select Work with Service Tools Server Security and Devices, and then Work with Service Tools Security options. We're going to follow the same recommendation that we had for the OS user profile password rules, which is to require any 3 of the 4 different character types: minimum length 16, maximum length 128, password expiration of 90 days, password change block of once every 24 hours, and requiring a difference of the last 32 passwords, and prevent the the profile from showing up inside the password. You can see on the bottom of the screen the 2 different screens from within SST where you can set each of these various password items. Again, this does not affect the operating system. These rules only apply to the SST user passwords. The final section that we're going to talk about today are some critical system access concerns. One of the most basic and major security requirements is that we should only be allowing authenticated users access to the system. The IBMI has 3 main ways that people can connect to the system without providing credentials. You want to check each one of these to make sure on your particular system that you're only allowing authenticated users onto the system. The first of these methods is through DDM. Here, you're going to use the change DDM TCP/A command and press F4. You're not actually going to be changing, you're only going to be viewing these items. If you see *same, you don't have a high enough level of authority. Log in with a higher level authority count and check the command again by using F4. Look for the lowest authentication method parameter. You want to make sure that it is not set to *no, *user ID, or *VLD only. Many logical replication products over the years have told admins to set this particular value to one of these 3 settings. These allow for easy cross-system communication because it does not require you to provide a password. All it requires is that someone simply provide the name of any user profile, such as QSecOffer. By providing a valid user profile name, with this setting, DDM will automatically allow that user to connect without a password. So again, you want to make sure that the lowest authentication parameter is not *no, *user ID, or *valid only. If it is, you will want to change this. However, before changing this, you need to make sure that all of your DDM communication users are updated. The second way that users can log on to the system without a password is through NetServer. NetServer is the IBM implementation of the SMB protocol to map a drive from a PC. NetServer can allow guest network access. This means that anyone that can reach the IBMI system over the network can have access to the files as defined by the guest profile. We want to make sure that the guest capabilities are disabled inside a NetServer. To do this, we want to make sure that the guest user profile is blank. To check this, log into SystemI Navigator, go to NetServer, Properties, and Security. Make sure that the guest user profile is blank. If there is any other value set, this means that the guest function is enabled and that users can automatically connect without providing their own credentials. To change this, you need to go under the Next Start setting and blank out the guest user profile. After that is done, you do need to stop and restart the NetServer protocol in order for those changes to be activated. The third way that users can automatically access the IBMI without providing credentials is through NFS exports. An NFS export is a way to share a set of files on the IBMI that can be accessed from another system that does a NFS mount of that export. These exports, by default, are set to allow anonymous access. However, this can be blocked when you set and create the export by setting the anon parameter to -1. This disables the anonymous access for that particular export. This value needs to be set on each NFS export that's run on the system. For more details on each of these three items, as well as to see more information on how the IBM I could be affected by a ransomware attack, see the white paper at the link on the bottom of your screen. Thank you for attending today's session. To learn more about Common, visit the link on the top of your slide. To learn more about the IBM Systems Lab Services team, visit the general link in the middle of the screen, or you can visit our IBM I specific security page listed at the bottom. If you have any questions that were not answered in today's presentation, please visit the first page of the presentation and use either my phone number or my email address to reach out to me with those questions, or if you have issues regarding your IBM I system as a whole. Thanks, and have a great day.